Major implications from this next story involving what are known as the Pandora Papers. Hundreds of Canadians listed among members of a global elite of rich and famous who are using offshore tax havens. Almost 12 million financial documents were leaked to the Washington, D.C.-based International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and shared with Canadian reporters. Among those alleged to be hiding away secret fortunes are 35 current and former world leaders, 330 politicians, more than 130 billionaires, as well as CEOs, celebrities, judges, criminals, and the list goes on. Ben Hallman is my guest, senior editor of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. Ben, great to have you part of our coverage today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hey, what are the implications, do you think, the ramifications of this dump of all of these documents?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as you mentioned, this is the biggest offshore leak in history. It really sort of lays bare the financial secrets of some of the people who are in a position to actually change the offshore system and potentially crack down on tax shelters. Politicians especially, hundreds of politicians are in our data. We found that they have offshore accounts, secret offshore accounts and trusts, along with billionaires, celebrities, and many more. And I think one of the implications really that we expect is that there'll be more heightened focus, not just on these people, not just on these individuals, but on the enablers, on the professional firms and other companies that really help direct this offshore economy.
It raises so many questions about, those in positions of power who are trying to advocate, or so they say, on behalf of transparency and accountability, fight corruption, to then see some of these revelations coming to light.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think that that is, we see the Prime Minister of Pakistan, for example, who has previously spoken out against the flow of money from his country into offshore accounts. Some of his close associates, we find out, also have offshore accounts. So, I mean, I think it's going to raise a lot of questions for these people. We're already seeing reaction from around the world. I think at last count, we have 8 governments promising investigations. And so, yeah, we'll see. It's early hours of this investigation.
I know, obviously, in previous releases involving, different financial documents that your group has been involved with, I mean, later there were ramifications and consequences for some of the people involved. They had to pay back taxes. In some cases, investigations were launched into some of their activities, Ben.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think a lot of people might be familiar with the Panama Papers. That was almost 5 years ago now, a little bit more than 5 years ago now. And billions of dollars were recovered after that investigation. Just by way of comparison, the Panama Papers came from one offshore provider. This one is from 14 different offshore providers. So the scope is much greater. And, analogy I've been using is that, the Panama Papers was like a chapter, and this is closer to a book and what it reveals.
And for people who are trying to make sense of all of this, is what's happening, is it illegal, Ben, or is it just using tax havens that are available?
Yeah, often it is legal. I mean, often what we're seeing are people just taking advantage of countries that intentionally have sort of weak laws and allow people to set up companies without reporting who really owns the company. So you can set up a company in a lot of places with something called a nominee director, which is really a front man. So it's really impossible to figure out who's really benefiting from the company and what it controls. And I should say that, we talk a lot about tax shelters as, these, palm tree islands or whatever. The United States, our reporting shows, is really one of the biggest tax havens in the world, and a growing one at that. We have a story that spotlights South Dakota, which has become a real hub of the international trust industry.
Yeah, well said. Delaware, of course, is another one. I'm curious, sort of as well, bigger picture, how easy or not this sort of thing is to do. Just, for people who have a lot of money and are able to, hire accountants and they know how the system works. I mean, again, sort of the level of complexity here.
Yeah, the answer is that it could not be easier. For a few $100s, a few $1,000s in some cases, you can find a lawyer in Panama or in the British Virgin Islands or in the United States who will direct you to the right place to get your company or trust set up. It's incredibly easy, and because the fact that this all happens in the shadows, there's just not much transparency. So people can do it without much fear that there will be blowback. Of course, the revelations of these documents might challenge some of those assumptions.
You know, it's just, again, just a really important example of why investigative journalism is so crucial, and now more than ever. The fact that your international consortium was able to do this, can you just tell us, sort of in layman's terms, you know, how wide-reaching this investigation was, Ben?
Well, we think it's the biggest journalism collaboration in history. And, you know, we are a small nonprofit, a few dozen people. But what we really do is leverage the power of our reporting partners all around the world. We work with the Washington Post and the Toronto Star and the BBC and small outlets in Asia, in Africa, and in South America, where there might be one or two people in a newsroom and they have very few resources. But by teaming together, you know, we're able to accomplish something that individually none of us could have done on our own.
Is this going to make a lot of people nervous?
I think it already is making a lot of, yes.
Ben, yeah, thanks for taking the time.